Need my glasses. Okay, here we go. Well, good morning, everybody. It's good to see you. Thank you for being here and giving a part of your Saturday morning. I know that's hard to do for many of us, and especially in the rain. So thank you for being here. To some of you, I know many of you actually in here, but for those of you who don't know me, you can't hear? Oh. I have to get really close. How's that? All right. Let me just move up a little bit. So again, I was just saying good morning and thank you for being here. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Reverend Carol Montgomery. I'm an elder in the Horizon, Texas conference. We just got back from annual conference, so I'm lagging a little bit. It was a long 3 days or 4 days, however long it was. But thank you for being here. So I know this is or may not be an easy season. Conversations about the future of it. Of course it is. Okay, here we go. But conversations about the future of a church you love is rarely easy. But they are holy conversations. And so today is not a meeting about vote. So for those of you who think, oh, we have to vote on, this is not that meeting, okay? This is not a meeting about debate or back and forth on what you think needs to happen. It's not that. Today is not about convincing someone about anything, but today is all about understanding, okay? It's all about getting more information so that you are informed moving forward. So over the past several months, we have listened carefully in this congregation. We had a session where it was full congregation, and many of you were at that meeting. And then after that, I've been in conversation with your leadership, and we've been asking some really deep questions. And good morning. Good to see you. We've been asking questions, very direct and honest questions. And so, if you're in leadership, would you just raise your hand? Because these folks have been working so hard over the last few months. So thank you for your, yeah, that's good. So we have celebrated your story in the work that we've done together. We have named your reality. And your leadership has spent time wrestling with what those realities mean. And so today, I'm going to share what we've learned so that now you'll be informed. My hope is that when we leave today, every person here understands the choices before you and what each choice or pathway requires moving forward. Because the question before First United Methodist Church Louisville is no longer, what do we want? The question is, what are we willing to do? Okay? Not what do we want, but what are we willing to do? But before we jump in, how about a prayer? Would that be all right? Okay. Please pray with me. Good and gracious God, for generations, faithful people have gathered in this place to worship, serve, celebrate, grieve, and follow you. You have been present in every chapter of this congregation's life. You were present when this church was growing. You were present when ministries flourished. You have been present in seasons of joy and seasons of challenge. And you are present now. As we gather today, help us speak honestly, help us listen deeply, help us resist fear, help us release defensiveness, give us wisdom that is greater than preference and courage that is greater than comfort. Remind us that the future of your kingdom does not depend upon our certainty, but upon your faithfulness. Guide our conversations and our discernment. Amen. So I'm going to take you through, as I said, I'm going to take you through what the process has been over the last few months so that you, again, have that deeper understanding. And then there will be a time for questions, and hopefully I have some of the answers that you're looking for. And then you're going to hear from your leadership at the very end, and then we'll wrap up. And I will keep us to the 2-hour allotment. I have a feeling we'll probably finish before that, but I just want you to know I value your time, and so I want to honor you being here this morning. So before we talk about where we may be going, let's remember where First UMC Louisville has been. In session 1, we honored the story of the church. We remembered lives changed, people baptized, families nurtured, mission accomplished. Nobody can take those things away. They are real and they matter. And they are part of God's story. In session 2, we named your current reality. That was harder. We talked honestly about the challenges surrounding attendance, leadership, finances, property, and ministry. Not because we wanted to be negative and find those little difficult spaces, but because faithful discernment always begins with transparency and truth. And so then in session 3, your leadership gathered to ask a different question. Not what do we prefer, but what responsibility comes with what we now know. That conversation became the bridge between reality and discernment. And so I want to share next what emerged from the conversation. Not opinions, not assumptions, but observations. The first area was people. And you'll hear me talk about that also in the terms of capacity, okay? Energy. The first area was people. So leadership spoke honestly about how much responsibility rests on a small group of people. Again and again, the conversation returned to capacity. Do we have the energy? Do we have the people to do what it is that we are feeling called to do? This isn't about commitment, because you have amazing commitment in the people that are a part of this beautiful congregation. This is not about lack of faithfulness, because you are a very faithful people. That was evident from the very first time I met you. It's about capacity. Nobody questioned the love people have for this church. The question was whether enough people have enough energy to sustain what is required next. The second area we discussed was property. The building carries both opportunity, and we talked a lot about that, and challenge. It is an asset, but it also requires investment. Many possibilities for sustainability depend on property decisions that have not yet been made. The third area was finances. Leadership recognized that financial sustainability cannot be separated from property decisions or ministry direction. Income does not magically appear. It follows vision, leadership, and stewardship. Finally, ministry is the last category. And leadership found it difficult to clearly articulate a focused ministry direction for the future. We talked a lot about the amazing ministry that you've done over the years and things that you've been passionate about. But looking forward into the future and looking at the community that's around you, and we did some deep diving into how that community has changed. What will this church be called to in the future? So we spent a lot of time discussing about that. There are ideas, many ideas. You have a very creative leadership team, by the way. there were possibilities, but there was not yet a compelling shared vision around which people could rally. And that realization, though difficult to state, is a really important thing to know. Because churches do not thrive simply because they have existed. Churches thrive when they know who God is calling them to become, right? So, after we did all of this work, we moved into what are possible pathways for First Louisville. And I want to say something first. Maybe I should share a little bit about why I do this work and why your district superintendent actually asked me to come in. This was kind of, for lack of a better word, this was something that the district superintendent really wanted you to have these conversations. And so this was a gift of the district. So, I have a history of, I'm a psychotherapist, I'm a pastor, I'm a teacher. And many years ago, before I was ordained, I was at an annual conference. And there was a woman, probably in her early 80s, sitting 2 or 3 rows in front of me. And at annual conference, they'll put up on a screen churches that are going to close, right? And it's very sterile, I'll be honest. It's very sterile, and it's an up and down vote. Here's what we want to do. We want to close this church. Raise your hand. Down. And this woman was in front of me, and she's sobbing because the church that she had grown up in, the church that she had loved and been a part of for so long, was closing. And there was no one around her. It was just her. And I was so moved by that. And I got up and I went and I sat with her and I just put my arm around her until it was over. And then we went our own ways. But in my mind, I thought, this will never happen. I don't know what I can do, but this will never happen as long as I'm ordained and a part of this conference. And so flash forward quite a while. I now have created something called Sacred Crossroads, which is walking with churches, not necessarily churches that are closing, some do, but others who find themselves at a space where, okay, what we're doing is not working, right? So we need to kind of figure out what we need to do differently to move into the future, right? So that's why I'm here. That's why I do what I do. And no matter what a church decides to do, I hope to be in that process to walk with you or walk with them through whatever may come, okay? And so today isn't, so if some of you are saying, oh, are we closing? I don't know. That's your decision to make. But essentially, we're going to talk about 4 pathways, actually 3, because I'll just come back to that one later. But for this congregation, you had 3 possibilities. And so I'd like to share those with you now. And again, this is not a decision that the district or the conference makes. This is a decision that rests with you, okay? So I'm not here to tell you what to do or not do, but I am here to lead you through. See, if I hold it like this and I'll start singing, and y'all don't want that. Karaoke, anyway, sorry. So what I'd like to say is we shift into this area. Your leadership's preferred choice. And again, we just did a straw poll. So again, they're not saying do this, don't do this. But I just want you to know after these folks did all of this work, this is kind of where they landed, although it wasn't, this was the majority, okay? The choice was to continue, okay? So that's, after all that work, that's what the leadership, that's where they landed. That should surprise no one. Most congregations want to continue, but eventually the conversation did shift Once that decision or that decision was made to follow that path, the question became, what would continuing actually require? Okay? So it's one thing to say, yeah, we want to continue. It's another thing to say, okay, how do we make that happen? And do we have the capacity to make that happen? Remember, I was talking about people. Do we have the energy to make that happen? All right? Every pathway, the 3 pathways we'll talk about today, will ask something of you. Every pathway requires courage. Every pathway requires sacrifice. And every pathway requires deep faith, which you already have. So today I want us to focus not on which option sounds best. I want us to focus on what each option requires, okay? Remember, that shifts us from preference to perhaps what we may be able to do as God calls us into the future. So pathway 1 is continue, so let's maintain and sustain what you have, and transform so that you can grow, so that you can make more disciples for Jesus Christ. Most churches instinctively gravitate towards this option. Remain open, continue ministry, grow again. It sounds really hopeful, and it is. But let's talk honestly about what it requires. This path requires more leadership than currently exists. Not the same leaders doing more, but more leaders joining that leadership pool. More people leading, more people serving, more people stepping forward. It requires a willingness to change, not just maintain. Not tweaking, not adjusting, changing. Programs that have existed for years may need to be put on a shelf for a moment. New ministries may need to begin. Sacred traditions may need to be evaluated through the lens of mission and your core values. It requires outreach, not hoping people show up, actually engaging people beyond the walls of the sanctuary. Building relationships with people who are not here, learning who your neighbors are. It requires generosity, financial generosity, volunteer generosity, emotional generosity, and it requires growth. Growth in participation, growth in leadership, growth in giving, growth in ministry impact. And most difficult of all, I think, it requires the people currently carrying this church to carry it differently. Not just sustaining what exists, but helping create what comes next. Okay? So the question is not, do we want to continue? The question is, are we willing to become a different church than we are today? I'm not saying throw everything out. I'm saying you have an amazing foundation. So how do we build on that foundation and move into the future? Okay? I'd like us to just maybe sit with that for a few seconds. Let that go deep. The second pathway is called Go Dark and Restart. Now, I did get a couple of emails from y'all, and thank you for those emails, because I always like questions and trying to give more understanding. And someone asked, they said, well, when you say go dark, that just sounds so harsh. Could it be, can we just tweak something and restart again, And no, this is really about going dark. And so let me tell you what that means. This option is the least familiar, I think, of the three pathways. So a restart is not renovation. A restart is not a reorganization. And a restart is not simply taking a break. Going dark and restarting means the current congregation intentionally ends its current ministry for a season of perhaps 6 months to a year, so that a new ministry can be planted in the future. The church would close. Current ministries would end. Current committees would end. Current leadership structures would end. The current pastor and lay leadership would relinquish leadership and responsibility for the church's future. Leadership would be handed over to the annual conference and to future pastoral and lay leaders who would be appointed and developed for a new season. The annual conference would assume responsibility for visioning, planning, leadership development, and determining what future ministry might emerge here. New pastoral leadership would be appointed, new lay leadership would emerge, new ministry priorities would be established, and there is no expectation the restarted church would look like the church that exists today. Some things might be familiar. Many things would likely be different. And during this season, members would be encouraged to worship and participate in other United Methodist churches, or perhaps stay together and have a church in-home church. Some may eventually return when a restart occurs, but others may discover a new church home and remain there. Both outcomes, and there are probably some other outcomes in there, all of those are acceptable under this plan. The goal of a restart is not preserving the current congregation. The goal is creating the possibility for a future ministry that can reach people in ways the current structure may no longer be able to do. This path requires a tremendous amount of trust. Trust in God, trust in the conference, trust in leaders that are not yet known, trust that resurrection often looks vastly different than what we imagined. So here, the question to ask is, are we willing to release control so that something new might emerge? So let's sit with that one for about 30 seconds. So typically, as I said today, there are 3 options that you will have in front of you. The one that I did not include is merger or adoption. And we took that out of the mix because in order to merge with another church or be adopted by another church, there has to be another church to be adopted by or another church in the area to merge with. And at this time, that wasn't an option. Excuse me. So that's why we took that option out. So the last one in the 3 options before you, or pathways, is called legacy completion. And this one is also, I believe, very difficult. It can be beautiful, but getting there is a challenge. because it involves a really deep grief as you go through it. The grief that comes when something beloved reaches completion. But I want to say something clearly. Legacy churches are not failed churches. Legacy churches are churches that choose to steward their last chapter faithfully. They ask, how can what God has built here continue blessing others? How can our property, our resources, relationships, and witness continue serving God's mission? This path requires honesty, it requires courage, it requires gratitude, it requires trust. It requires walking through this grief together. It requires making thoughtful decisions about property and resources. It requires celebrating the ministry that has been while releasing what can no longer continue. It requires believing that God's story is larger than any single congregation. And so the question here becomes, are we willing to finish well? So now I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you, and hopefully many of you have seen the handouts that we've sent through email, and so that you've had time to look over these choices. Friends, I believe the question before us is this. It's not which option do I like best. It's which option are we willing to support collectively with our prayers and our energy, our leadership, our resources, and our trust. Because every option is a faithful option. But none of them are passive. Each requires something from you. Each requires sacrifice. Each requires commitment. Each requires courage. And as I said, each requires faith. Okay? So, with that, I'm going to open it up to some questions, and hopefully I can give you the information you're needing. And if not, we'll find someone who can.
Just understand, we're live streaming this, so whenever you ask a question, I'm going to hand you the mic. Speak into the mic, not just for the people in the room, but also that the mic picks up so that whoever's listening online can hear what you have to say. Or we can do karaoke. Introduce yourself and then ask your question, please.
My name is Cheryl Crawford, and I've listened carefully. Thank you for all of the work that you've done, and thanks to our leadership team for all they've done.
Amen.
I think it's been an amazing journey. I have a concern, and that is in the second option, the phrase is trust the conference and the new leadership to guide us. And my question is, if we were to choose the first option, where does the conference come in? We need to have some guidance if we're going to put all this energy and commitment and whatever into doing a new mission. What part does the conference play in guiding us and helping us? Because they probably have seen this happen and they know what works or what doesn't work. Is there a place for them in that option?
There is a place for the conference in that first option, and thank you. That was one of the questions I got in email. But not in the way that they would be in the second option, right? So they would journey alongside you. There is the center of multiplication, which may sound confusing, but multiplication, what they do, they work with churches who are new starts. They work with churches who are currently in existence and are looking for new ways to go into ministry. So that is led by Reverend Stacy Piakun. Don't ask me to spell that. I can later, maybe. Stacy Piakun. And Stacy has an amazing team of people, and they have different areas of focus. And so she would be the conference connection who would walk alongside of you. And in fact, I think, who was it on leadership that actually went to, yes, you want to say something about that, what you went to with Stacy? Sorry, Chris. Run.
Hi, this is Risa Carroll, and Karen Howe and I went to the multiplication master class or group class that they had last July about, how you work with greeting people when they come to your church. And then I went to the multiplication master class in October. That was about how to connect with people to bring them in. So I attended both of those, and lists and lists of ideas and such, but so I did go to those.
Thank you. So for those of you, there are numerous what they call master classes in specific areas of ministry. And so in this first choice, or this first pathway, the conference, as I said, journeys with you, but they're not doing it for you. Okay, very important. In the second one, that second pathway, the conference is coming in and they're running the show. Okay, does that help? Okay, good.
Janet Brown, and one of the things that you mentioned in the first pathway was how our leadership team has so much responsibility. Indeed. And they've worked very hard. And I think back when we had committees, the separate committees, and we'd have 5, 6, 7 people on the committees. Well, there you had that many people working in one area and then in another area. I feel like that may be something we need to consider, is going back to the committees instead of just one leadership committee.
Well, so that's another training that I do with congregations, is I train people on the simplified board model. And when it's, so you can have those same types of committees under a single board, right? They're sometimes called a task group or whatever. So there is a way to engage more people in ministry, but I love that point. And that's exactly the point, is you do have this small group of leaders, and they can cast the vision and with your pastor set the way forward, but there does need to be a deeper bench, if you will, of volunteers, of task group members, or committee members, to help implement those ideas, right? So that's a very, very good point. And that would absolutely have to happen if you chose the first pathway. There would need to be a deeper bench, like I said, of leaders and volunteers and those in service to the community. So thank you for that. That was a good point.
Carol, may I just speak a word of privilege? I think the difference in that is it wouldn't be more people looking at budgets or doing administrative committees. Part of the idea of bringing to the single leadership board was we would have people who would be doing that so that more people could actually do the ministry that is relational to meet people in the community. It wouldn't be going back to committee structures so we could have more people talking about administration. It would be more people doing that. So that's the balance of some of that too, correct?
Yeah, well said, yeah.
Were you gonna ask a question? Yeah, you need a mic.
Okay, I'm Ken Brown.
Hi.
My question is, you're saying that the ministry of the church or the church itself needs to change.
Correct.
Give me some examples of what you're talking about.
So, what we realized is we kind of did an inventory of the ministries that are currently in existence, is that many of those ministries seem to be inwardly focused, right? And I'm not saying stop that, right? Remember, this is like you have this foundation. but there seemed to be a lack of ministries that were outward facing. Now, you have some things like Pumpkin Patch, a Touch a Truck, that was it. So you have Touch a Truck, which is great because that invites the community in. But what it doesn't do is build relationship with them. So in looking at some of those ministries, it's how do we take those ministries that maybe are outward facing and go into relationship with those people to where it's not it's not transactional, right? Many of our ministries, and not just, this isn't a commentary of just this congregation, many of our congregations, this is how church has always been done. If we put something out there in the community, then people will come. That's not how it's working these days. What we know is that people want to feel belonging. And in order to know how people can feel a part of something, we have to be in relationship with them. We have to be sitting down and having conversations with them. We have to know what keeps them awake at night. And I think Touch a Truck, or in other cases, a Cabbage Patch, Pumpkin Patch, those are beautiful ministries, but it doesn't get to what we're talking about. And that would be an example how things need to change. It's a need to go deeper in relationship with people who are outside the walls of this sanctuary. Does that help?
Yes, my name is Dan Schaffner. One of the realizations that this congregation needs to understand is the aging of our congregation. It's a given fact. But we don't have a percentage of how many of our people are over 60 or over 70. In order to do these new missions, we need to realize the truth that a 70-year-old trying to run a youth program is not going to be very well accepted. But it would be good to know the numbers of what the current active congregation, where the breakdown is on the age, because some of these new ministries, we're needing people with the energy that a lot of us at our point in life don't have.
Yeah.
And we'd love to have it. We really wish we could. But if we commit to that and we do not have the energy, then that's just another failure of a program that's not going to keep the church going. So what are the numbers of the congregation as it regards to the age breakdown?
Yeah. So that was, and Chris, unless you know it off the top of your head, that was something that we discussed, I believe, in like the second session. And I think that is something we put in a summary. I'm thinking a summary report that I sent. I can't remember. Is that something the church office would have, or can we? Yeah. I can't remember.
We can look and see if we can find that report. I could sit right here and go, okay, everybody under 60, raise your hand. Because this basically would be our active congregation at this moment. So yeah. we could do. But
yeah. But thank you for, again, that point, because it goes back to when I was talking about capacity. Y'all, this has nothing to do with your commitment, your passion, your faithfulness. It has nothing to do with that. You have that in spades, but it is about energy and capacity to do some of the things we're talking about in order to move forward into the future.
Hi, my name is Alexis George. I am the youngest in the congregation, so I actually have a question to go along with that. What would it look like for us to be able to bring these younger people in? I mean, I'm 19, I love this church. What would that look like, and how can I personally move forward and help this church with creating young adult groups, with creating more outreach, so we can get these younger people in, so we can help and grow this church in that way?
I love that question, and it's going to take a lot of people like you that have that energy. But thank you for that question. That is something you all will have to discuss as a congregation. I can't give you that, but there are people in that center I was talking about, Stacy, Reverend Piakun. They have people that are focused on youth and children, right? And so these folks would be able to journey with you on that. What I want to direct us back towards today is this is really questions about the pathways, so that when it comes back for you to take a vote, then you can really like, okay, we chose pathway number 1. Now what are we going to do about youth and family? And I mean, that would be, so if you can, hang on to that question because it's a brilliant question. Yeah, thank you.
My name is Ron Anderson. VBS, our motto was Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. We had a fun week teaching these kids that motto, that we can be brave, that we can share our gifts, and that we can do these things. And so VBS was fun. That was my second year full-time doing that. I feel that I have that energy. I do outreach. We don't talk about Texas Ramp in here. I'm responsible for the entire Denton County wheelchair ramp project. We have some of those things. Maybe some of them just need a little bit more focus. My questions are, what are the rates of success for these 3 options? How many churches out of a group choose to close? How many choose to restart? And how successful is that as opposed to just trying to do more? I think the energy is here. The participation does need to improve. I hope that when we show the BBS video that this congregation realizes it's there. We just might need to try harder.
Yeah.
But what are the success rates?
So I wish I had those stats for you. I'm relatively, as I said, this is a different way of doing things. In the past, the conference made the decision. Congregations really didn't have that choice of pathway. And it's only been probably in the last 8 years or so that we've kind of moved towards this. I can tell you with churches that I've worked with, I'm working with 6 right now. There are 2 that will make the decision to close and be a legacy church. For them, that was a hard decision and yet the best decision. And they're going to live into the legacy of their ministry. They have some liquid funds that they'll put into a donor advised fund, and they're going to keep giving their tithes to that so that the interest on that account can go to feed the ministry that they're, and it is a feeding ministry, to feed the ministry that they are so passionate about. So that helps them conclude kind of this chapter and grow into the future. And then they have found some other places to go to church together. But as far as statistics, I can't tell you. That would be a conference question. I can find that out, but I don't have those numbers. Yeah. I was a part of a church where I brought together a church for adopting another church. This was up in Frisco and Little Elm. And again, these are really difficult decisions, so I don't want to discount any of that. Yet they were adopted by this larger church. They ended up closing their church and sold that property. And now many of those, there were 20, I think, left in that congregation. Many of them went to the church that adopted them, and others went to several United Methodist churches around. And by the way, some went to a Presbyterian church down the road. So it does, some folks choose a different congregation. So, yeah. And I feel like I need to add, I'm not, even though the conference sent me here, I'm not of the conference. Well, I am. I mean, I'm an elder in the conference. Wait, cancel. What I'm saying is I'm not here to be their henchman, so to speak. I'm here really just to walk with you, and I want you to make the decision that's best for you. I'm not here to tell you what to do, and I really don't have opinions about that because I want you to really pray about this and to embrace this and really be honest with yourselves as a congregation as to what you can and will do, okay? So please know I'm not here to direct you in one way or the other.
One of the church during Sunday morning. Like, no.
Hello, my name is George Gober. I'm
Hey, George.
about a 70-year member of this church, so I've
Praise
seen the
God.
good and the bad. One of the things that I'm noticing is that the SAS committee has lots of decisions that they have to make, and they're doing a great job of it, but they're not communicating it to the congregation. In the finances in choice one, we've got the cell tower that we could sell. We could rent the eastern portion of the church. There's things that we could do to keep ourselves financially viable, but it requires a lot of oversight and planning ahead of time. And I would like to encourage the SAS committee and others in that group to be sure and communicate these things to our Sunday school classes and the congregation.
Thank you for that, and that might be a segue here in a minute. Communication is key. I agree with you. Communication is key. I think, how long has your SAS been? A year?
A little over a year.
Yeah. So it takes about 2 years to get it going, and so input is really important. Constructive input, you know. So communication, that's a beautiful example of that. And so something that you just said, what was it? So yeah, there are some things, as I mentioned, there are some things this congregation can do to ramp up financial giving or some finances. But remember, this is more than finances, because all finances will do is maintain you, right? Now, depending on the amount of finances, maybe it helps you hire some other people in specific areas of ministry that can help lead. But again, what I would hate to see, and I see it too often in many churches, is to be too reliant on staff. Your staff is there to support you. Your pastor is there to walk with you in vision, but this is on y'all, right? So it's not, you're going to do it together. So finances, that's important, but that other piece we're talking about, capacity, also, right? But thank you. So I hope you're writing down communication. Your leadership will greatly appreciate that. And just so you know, you'll be hearing from your leadership when I'm done. So if you do have some questions.
I'm Larry Swally, and we've been members here since the mid-'80s.
Praise God.
As I look around this group and at our congregations on Sunday morning, I see one true fact out here, such as me. I'm 83 years old. Where am I going to be 20 years from now? I'm going to be dead. And the vast majority here are going to be in the same boat. We aren't going to be here. What we need is youth. We need young people. We need those that are 20, 30, 40 years old and their children. If you have them, we can stay alive, we can grow, we can function, we can live, we can worship, and we can serve God. If we don't have them, we're simply putting a Band-Aid on a bad wound here, which is a church that's getting older, and that Band-Aid's going to fall off someday, and we aren't going to be here anymore. So we need youth, and that is our real answer that we need, is how do we reach youth? And as we look around our community here, where do we find the young people? Well, this church helped start Trish. We helped start Vista Ridge. We helped start Flower Mound. And that's where you see a vast number of the youth is in the areas surrounding us. What do we have here? Yes, we have a retirement facility. That's not youth. We got Walmart. That's people coming in and out the door over there. We don't have a lot of youth right here. Yeah, there's a high school across the street, but are we reaching them? So that's what we have to look at. Are we going to survive by bringing young people into this church? And if so, where do we find them? Where do we get them? And how do we encourage them to stay.
Yeah.
Because we can all have the enthusiasm and the finances and everything keep this building going, but for how long?
Thank you. Don't throw it.
I'm Steve Adams. Larry, I liked your comment about the Band-Aid because all these options, I think, involve an element of grief because any change is exciting, but it's scary.
It is.
And right now, I feel like we have a Band-Aid that it's on a sensitive part of our skin, where there's a lot of hair, and we're slowly pulling it off, and we're feeling a little grief every day or pain from that. And I think that's a legacy option. If we continue with that, we're just going to slowly see that Band-Aid be pulled off, and it's going to hurt a lot, and it's going to take a lot of time, and we just stretch that out. The second option, I feel like, is you rip the Band-Aid off and you start fresh, and you're ready to go. You have pain, you have sorrow, but you have excitement of something totally new. And the first option, continue and transform, it's no different from legacy if we don't truly transform. And if we truly transform, it is change, and it is going to be scary, and there's going to be grief. Maybe we'll change something about worship. Maybe we'll change something about some of our existing ministries. But if we're willing to face grief, it's a question of how fast do we want to deal with that? Do we want to linger and linger and linger and have that grief go on and on and on? Do we want to address it quickly and see the excitement of something new happen in a matter of a year or 6 months or whatever? Or do we commit ourselves to a transformation that will cause us some grief, but there'll be excitement and there'll be possibility of new growth? No guarantees, but we trust that God will be with us, whichever way we pick. But I think it's part of our question for us. How fast are we willing to move into a new future? And are we willing to pay the price of the grief that will accompany that?
Thank you.
Of course, it's going to be across the sanctuary. I'm making it.
I think I have a pretty good deal here. I'm just,
I'm not.
I'm sitting here watching you go across.
I'm no longer a 40-year-old, so, I'm getting it in. Where am I going?
Hi, Michael George, just a question. So, obviously, I'm going to assume that everybody here wants to go with option one to, try to rebuild and do what we can. But I guess my question is that if we do that option, and unfortunately, let's just say, unfortunately, it doesn't work, what do we do then? Do we still have option 2 and 3 on the table, or is that we tried number 1, didn't work, and we're going to legacy at that point? So
That's a great question.
How does that work?
That's a great question. Thank you. No, it's not one and done. So it's what pathway do we feel best fits us right now to move us forward? Let's say you try number 1 and you're like, it didn't work. Maybe even 6 months in, you're like, oh man, this is a grind. I don't know. Can we want pathway number 2. Well, then you have a conversation with your district superintendent, and then he or she, it's a he for y'all, will help you move through that. Or if you wanted to, you're like, oh no, we're going to be legacy church. So no, it's you try something and then you can try something else. Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, Jimmy Gibson. Lauren and I joined the church in '93, I think, so we've been around a few years. Question I have is, if we do go option 1, what's the odds of success? I mean, have you seen that succeed routinely, or like other people are saying, are we just prolonging the inevitable?
I have seen it work, but not very often. Can I give you a percentage? I can't. But it is, I will say, it's a pathway that most congregations gravitate toward, because as I said early on, it's one of the most, it feels hopeful. But again, a couple of you have stated, we can have finances, but if we don't do this other piece, are we just kicking the can down the road? So that, once you make that decision, it has to be an informed one. Yeah.
Okay, so follow up to that. When we walked into this church in 1993, it looked a lot different than this. And I'm not throwing rocks at people that are old. I'm old too. But you know, we wouldn't have joined this church when we first came in if the congregation looked like this coming in as a young family. So, you know, I think the age thing is certainly important. The fact that it hasn't truly been successful, at least what you've seen in the past, going down path number one. So, I mean, I think the reality's there, and we just have to understand where we're at right now and, you know, realize what we're going to have to do.
Okay, remember, you don't have to make decisions today. We're just having a conversation, so.
Ed Conrad, honestly, discussions like this have been going on my whole life. I grew up in a church, and I remember a discussion they had just like this one, and they ended up going forward. But yes, it does take people to do it. My church, the one I grew up in, finally died last year after only having 3 or 4 people. But my question is, what is the trends out there today? Does anybody know about young people and what their priorities are as opposed to what they were back in the 70s and 80s?
Wow. That is a terrific. Hello. Oh, sorry. So did you all hear that question? So the question was, what trends might I know of regarding young people and versus today versus 1973? Yeah. Yeah. So what we know about young people is that they don't trust the institution of church that many of us grew up with, right? They're focused on specific missions. You know, if they're passionate about a feeding ministry, if they're passionate about international mission trip, if they're passionate about building ramps, they're more inclined to become a part of a group, a congregation, if you will, if there's something that they're passionate about and they want to put their energy towards that. What we also know is that denominationally, and this is across not just United Methodists, this is Presbyterians, Lutherans, all sorts of different churches, we know that joining those denominations is declining. But the really awesome thing is spirituality is on the uptick. So that means where they cross, there's this gap. And the challenge of congregations is to figure out how to meet them in that gap. And so, and I also want to say too, another trend I saw not too long ago, there are many young families that want to be a part of intergenerational churches. It's not they just want to join a church that's all young people like themselves, right? We're seeing that there's a trend, they want to join a church that is intergenerational. They want the grandparents around them. They want the parents around them that perhaps they didn't have when they were growing up. So we see that. But remember when we talked about early on, I said the number one thing we know that people in general, well, this applies to young people or people, they want to feel belonging. They want to feel that they can be accepted for who they are as they are in this moment. Don't we all? Right? So, but they need to feel that on a number of different levels. Does that help? Did that answer your question? Somewhat? Okay. He's over there. He'll come back. Don't throw it. He's running. Run.
Okay, so just, I'm not trying to do anything here, but just this question. Can the conference provide us with resources so that we could maybe offer ministries or offer volunteer things that, okay, old people can be a part of, but yet attract these people who are passionate. Can we do that and still grow the church and do option one? Can't the conference do something to just come in and say, here are these things that we have seen that you need to think about, and then we take off and do it?
I suppose they might, but I don't think it would be helpful, because what that becomes is a prescription. If you give a prescription to the same prescription to every church who is in the situation that you're in, it's not helpful. So you need to understand who you are as a congregation and then say, you know what, as a congregation, we have found that we need someone to focus on youth and to be in relationship with the school across the street. You know, this is maybe an area of focus we want to look at, or an area of ministry. And then the conference would say, you know what, we have some master classes where you can bring people to be a part of and learn those techniques and learn what you need to do. But no, the conference probably will not come in and say, there's I don't know, 800 churches. There's a lot of churches. So that's not something they can do. But if you came to them and say, this is what we feel convicted about, this is where we feel we really need to go, yeah, they're going to try to find the people that we have at a conference level to help you in that journey. Absolutely. Yeah, talk to Chris. You just scared him off. Thank you for that follow-up.
Carol, I have a question. So just to make sure I understand. So in Pathway 1, basically what would happen is almost immediately after whatever vote would need to take at whatever future time, the congregation would commit that we would almost immediately begin to take action toward clarifying vision, what is our goals, do that, and then try to allocate and align resources to support us in that. But we would be the agents of that. No one would be coming to us to do that, as would happen in Pathway number 2.
Correct.
Okay.
This is Jamie Schaefer. I want to start by saying thank you so much, Carol, as you have walked us through the leadership team through these questions and these decisions and have really made us think deep and think of things in a different perspective. So I just wanted to say I appreciate all the work that you've been doing to help us to have the conversations as a congregation. As I look at the options that were presented, and I've sat here and I've listened to some of the questions, I have just like 2 questions. So the first, going back to the gentleman that was asking about the success ratio between 1 and 2, and you'd mentioned that there were some that you have seen succeed. So for the ones that did succeed by reinventing themselves with option 1, what would you say was the biggest contributing factor to their success?
Okay.
That's question 1. And then question 2, how have you seen people's mindsets shift from this is a challenge to this is something we can do? And I say that, as many of you are aware, I had started a ministry, a supportive home out of our church, and I've got to say kudos to Lynn Maxwell, who I'm sure is listening online today. Lynn is one of our homebound members here at church. She watches religiously every Sunday, and she's been doing a lot of behind-the-scenes work for a supportive home, even though she's homebound. And so it's a great example of how we can think outside the box for individuals that maybe don't have as much energy. Is it something that could be contributed for 10, 15 minutes a week to help something within the church? Because little things can add up. And I'm just curious to see how you've seen mindset shift in the options where people have succeeded in option 1. Thank you.
Great questions. I can always count on you to ask really good questions. So I'm thinking of a church, it was a small church, much smaller than this church, over in East Dallas. And a pastor was actually sent to that church to close them. And this was, probably, well, actually, 2 pastors were sent to close them at various times. But this would have been at a point where it was an aging congregation. They didn't know what they could do to connect with the surrounding community. But the pastor came in and said, your choice. I'm here to either walk you through hospice, or we can kick the doors open and do something different. Well, this was a feisty bunch, and they said, nope, we want to try something different. And what that looked like for them was, again, they had grown up with the concept of church where you take care of your own, essentially, and if people like what they see, then they'll come to you. And what they realized, excuse me, is that they had to get out in the community, right? They had an elementary school, like within blocks of them. Actually, 2 elementary schools within blocks of them. High school and middle schools were not too far away. So they looked at how they could go deeper in relationship. Sorry. Raise your hand if you have allergies. So they went deeper into relationship with the teachers and administrations at those schools, and started helping out at lunch or tutoring or doing those kinds of things. And then guess what? The families, the parents started finding out about that. And then they decided they did an amazing VBS, it looks like this one is quite fun. But they started doing things that these families would be interested in. They also, so again, it was going deeper. It was moving from that transactional mindset to a relational mindset. And this congregation, as I said, it was, people well past 65, and they turned it around. And they started having, they had monthly community dinners where they would invite, that's when they would invite people in, but a lot can be accomplished around the table, right? You can learn a lot. What that means, though, you can sit there and ask somebody what keeps you up at night, but you better be prepared to share what keeps you up at night. This is about relationship. And so it's going into relationship with people. And so they did. They turned that church around. They did. And it's as I said, small church, so they can't, it's doing very well and has for quite some time. Yeah. What was that? Oh, mindset shift. So I think it is a shift in mindset of, yes, we can. And yes, I'm vital. And I'm important to this ministry, regardless of whether I'm an older adult or a youth or a child. I am a part of the ministry of this church because this is God's. So I'm a part of God's story, right? So that was the shift, is like, yes, we can, and we will. At least we'll try. So to your point, what happens if we try? Well, you try and see what happens, and then make a decision from there.
Michael, again, just a quick question. If option 2 is voted on,
okay,
and people decide they want to do it that way, I guess the question is, what is the time frame for that? How
Good
long
question.
does that take effect? I mean, if you're going to go shut down for a season, is it 6 months after the decision is made? Is it immediate? How does that look?
Yeah. So typically, again, that will be a decision for your district superintendent. But typically, there will be a transition period. So it's not like you make a decision on any of these decisions and you start the next day, right? There will be a transition period, so that's done seamlessly and can help people get what they need and get to where they need to be. Then that going dark period is it can be 6 months to a year. It just depends what the focus is, so in that scenario, they would bring in what's called a planting pastor. I'm not that. I don't know if Chris, I don't know, but they would bring in a planting pastor. So it's a pastor who is very entrepreneurial in spirit, also very pastoral, but they come in and they look at the big picture, and they don't have, so they have this big picture, and they see the needs of the community. So they do a lot of work looking at trends in the community around you, and then it's like it's a restart. And then, so it can be 6 months to a year. Yeah.
Okay, my name's Lorna Gibson, and I guess I had a question on.
Wait, where are you?
Oh, I'm over here. Sorry.
Okay,
I guess I just had a question on. It seems like our church has been trying and trying and trying to get new members and trying to do different outreaches. So I'm not really sure what we can do differently on our own. If we decide to, stay as we are, or maybe not stay as we are, I don't really know how we get a group together, or how we think. I know we need to change our thinking, but I don't know how we change it. I don't know where we get that direction on, now we're going to reach out to all the elementary schools, or I don't know where. It seems like we've tried, so I'm not really sure what we would do differently to make a change. And if you're saying really the conference doesn't step in, other than like attending master classes, I'm not really sure where we get that information or knowledge to do anything different. And then I was going to go back to, you were saying do outreach. We did VBS for years and years and years. And I can only, off the top of my head, think of really like one family out of VBS who's ever come to our church that hasn't either been involved with the church already, been involved with like CCDC. I can only think of one family, and they've actually moved since then. And this year we had 16 kids in VBS, 14 came during the days. And out of those kids, there was only, I think, 5 that were non-church members or not church grandchildren of the volunteers. So out of those 5, there was only 3 families. So with VBS, we only reached 3 families, which was an outreach where we brought the kids in. And in reality, actually, the smaller VBSs are more fun than the really big ones, because you actually get a chance to really meet with the kids and be with the kids and understand them. Everybody says they had a great time, but they don't come back. So I guess with that, and I think you kind of answered, I had a question on option 2. Like, what would the vision of our church be? And I guess you're saying that they'd bring a pastor in and they would get a feel of the area before we really made a decision, or they made a decision on what this building would become. I guess I was hoping with this meeting that we might have I'd get more clarity on if we choose option 2, like this is the path, or this is what the church will become if we choose option 2. And I guess that's not really, at this point, anything we know. So I guess.
No, I mean, the only certainty in choosing pathway 2 is, like I said, everything as you know it will go away, except the building, and it's a restart. It's a complete, the name may change. There's a rebranding, if you will. Leadership goes away, you get new leadership, and that goes for lay leadership too.
But I guess there's no idea, the conference hasn't had any thoughts. There's no idea of what that brand new could be.
I'm sure, again, my friend Reverend Stacy Piakun will probably not talk to me after this, but truly, a lot of those ideas do come from her center. And so, I mean, Philip, Reverend Rhodes, who's your district superintendent, he knows that we're having this conversation today. He knows that you've been in this process. So he's very aware of this congregation and of this church. And so I'm sure he's got some ideas going if you were to choose, pathway number 2. It's just that those haven't been shared with me because that's beyond me. But it's not like they won't have any ideas. I'm pretty sure they've got some pathways. They just haven't been revealed to me. Oh, me.
Is it on?
To further...
Yeah, you did great.
On.
That's wonderful.
Oh, I'm Margot Dillard. I think you all know me because I've been sitting over there since 1981. To further clarify what she just said, most of us all grew up singing the little song that says, "The church is not the building, the church is us." Option 2, this church, us, as a church family, ceases to exist the same way it does in option 3. I've seen churches do this. It closes, and the building gets a new pastor, a new staff, a new startup congregation, and like she said, often even a new name. But by this time, 90% of us are in other churches. It's not, this church goes back online like we did during COVID and then reopens the building 6 months later. It's a close and new church start. I think everybody needs to understand that, because like talking about what will the church's vision be, it's not our vision anymore.
Right.
It's a totally new church.
Thank you, Margo.
Just raise their hands in church.
I'm Sarah Arnold. This is my 50th year in this church. And one thing that you said a few minutes ago sparked something in my mind about the high school across the street. And you mentioned that the young people now are interested in a mission, a cause, something to get behind. And we have the facility here. Is there any way we can find out, maybe this young person over here would know what these kids would get behind and be willing to come over here and use our facility, and we could help them do that?
I love these kind of questions because this is what I'm passionate about, but that's not where we are right now. We can't go into problem solving. But yes, there are, that would be, if you were to choose pathway number 1, man, I would want you to put a pin in that and go exactly in that direction. But for right now, this is really just about asking questions about the pathways. But please hang on to that question because it is so very important. So if there are no other questions, I do know, what's wrong? Do you have a question?
Hold on. Everybody waits to the last.
I'm Betty Meister. Again, I thank all of you, Pastor Chris, our committee, and the wonderful attendance today. I have one idea. If everybody over 65, we need to stay seated. The younger people stand up, and then we could see how many there are. No, that's just in jest. I have the question about the voting process. Will that be done here at the church, by mail-in?
The voting process, okay.
Do
Yes.
members vote? Do longtime visitors
Thank
vote?
you. Thank you.
Do shut-ins vote?
Yeah.
And my last is that whatever we do it to the glory of God. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a wonderful question. Yeah. So you would call, the next meeting will be with Reverend Rhodes, and it will be a church conference, which is different than a charge conference. This would be an all-church conference, which means that people who are members of this church would be able to vote. And I wanted to peruse this because I got a wonderful question online, or maybe it was a phone call, but it was about voting and about could we vote proxy. According to discipline, you cannot vote proxy. You have to be present to vote. However, there's a little loophole that maybe Chris can tug on, not me, in that when we were in COVID, there were votes taken online. And so there might be some sort of, for people who are shut in, for people who just for whatever reason can't be here for the vote, maybe our friends online, there might be something, you'd have to talk to Reverend Rhodes about this, but there might be a way for folks to vote in that way, because it would be in real time, and you would have a receipt of that online, So that would be as close to proxy, I think, as you can get. But longtime members, no, cannot. They can come and be present and voice, but no vote.
Longtime members or longtime visitors?
Oh, visitors, I'm sorry. Y'all.
As you can tell, there's a lot of longtime members.
I'm just gonna leave now. I'm very sorry.
Yeah.
Please, no tar, no feathers. Yeah, longtime visitors. Wow. Sorry. Is that what you were trying to catch me on? Yeah. So would you like to hear from your lay leadership a little bit? Okay, but remember, the questions, please try to keep your questions about process, not about fixing. Because if we're going to go into fixing, we're going to be here well past the 2 hours I promised. Hi. You going to arm wrestle? What are you going to do? Here, let me just move that out of the way. Maybe you can put your stuff up there.
So I just want to say thank you to Carol, the rest of our leadership team. Thank you for everybody for being here. This has been a long process. As one of the younger members of the congregation, my name is Trey Valentine. I am on your leadership board. I attend the modern service. I just want to say, if I could, I grew up in a small Baptist church. I know. I'm also a lawyer. Somehow I got in here. So, and we had a choir director at the church that I went to. He retired, so to speak, and he said at the end of his retirement speech, he said, nobody retires from the Lord's work. And this was, 15 years ago, probably. And I saw a picture of him this week on the church's Facebook page. I still follow. He was leading VBS, leading music at VBS. So as a younger member of the congregation, to our older members of the congregation, we need you. We need your guidance. We need your expertise. We need your time and your resources. Your financial resources being one of them. So thank you all for your leadership, for your steadfastness and your faithfulness to this congregation. It means a lot to the younger members of this church. I came here with my wife 12 years ago. We stayed because the pastor at the time, Andy Lewis, remembered our name the next time that we came. And that was it. That's all that it took. It took someone just remembering our name for us to stay here. And I felt that same sense of belonging when I came back today. I haven't been here in a few weeks. We have a newborn at home. People were asking how I was, saying hello to me, asking about our baby, about our toddler. That's the kind of connection that we have here with one another. And I love this church. I love all of you. Thank you for welcoming me for all these years, even though I'm a Baptist and a lawyer. So thank you for that. Okay. Quick shot of B12, hopefully. So we had a couple of questions about the cell tower and leasing this space in the East Wing. I have an update on the cell tower. So if some of you don't know, there is a kind of a cell tower in the back part of this building. We do lease that to a cell tower company. I don't know, that's probably a terrible phrase, but it's leased to someone. We are currently receiving about $2,250 a month for that lease. The board received an offer to take a lump sum for a longer term lease. The offer was $475,000 for a long-term easement, I should say, of that space. Or we could take a new lease for 20 years for about $3,900 a month. Those were the offer that was presented to us. Running the numbers on that, doing some present value calculations, the board has decided to go with a lump sum option. I had a conversation with a representative from the cell tower company yesterday and communicated the board's offer of $600,000 lump sum for a long-term 50-year easement of that space. It's my understanding that that has been accepted. I'm expecting a letter of intent or a contract to come to me next week. I have every reason to believe that that's going to go through and that that's going to be totally fine. Obviously, if we have an update on that, I'll let you know. We're expecting cash in 60 days. I don't remember. I think this offer was presented to us just through Leah, I think. So I want to thank Leah and Chris. They've done a lot of work on this. Chris introduced us to a friend that he knows that works at AT&T to help us work through some of these numbers. So very thankful for that. And Chris is going to give us an update on some leasing space in the East Wing.
Thanks, Trey. And again, thank all of you for all that you do for this church for so many years. As one of the younger members, we are looking at trying to utilize the space better. I mean, for those of you who have walked around this building, you see a lot of unused space, especially down on that end, down there, the old education wing. And so we're looking at trying to utilize that space by leasing it to different organizations. Right now we have another church who is wanting to, not a United Methodist Church, but another church that wants to use it mainly for office space and meeting space, not for services. So we have several rooms that we're looking at there that should give us some reasonably good income, but it's a short-term lease. We're also talking with the conference about possibly doing some things with them for office space, and then we're actively trying to lease some of those areas. So if you know anybody who needs some space, some rooms, please let us know, because we need to have fairly steady income, but we also don't just want to have all of that space sit there and do nothing. And that may be part of our mission work as we go forward. And when we say, okay, well, we have some relational things we have to do, well, let's come up with those ideas, if that's the direction we want to go. Any questions about that? Way back at the back.
Lorna just waiting till I got all the way up front.
Well, I mean, I know, and everybody's been doing a really great job on trying. Everybody's been doing a great job on trying to get that space leased. But I mean, we've been working at it for 5 years or so, trying to get that area leased. And I mean, I know it's hard because a lot of it has like the little toilets. You know, like the whole CCDC area has just like little toilets and stuff like that. But I mean, it seems like we haven't had, and I know there's probably currently some interest in it. But I mean, it's been a path we've been trying for a very long time, and everybody working on it's been doing a great job. But it just seems like it's not been moving.
Correct. And hopefully that's going to change. We have some interest in it now. But hopefully because of the cell tower project, we will also have some money to fix up some of the broken toilets and all of those other things. And again, part of the things that we'll need to do if we choose Pathway 1 is to decide what our priorities are. We don't, just because we get a lump sum of $600,000, we don't just want to spend $600,000. We need to decide what missions we want to spend it on. We need to decide what, how we fix up this property and the building, how we make it look better. I think we've done a lot in the last several weeks to make it look a lot better. And I think that as we continue to do that, we'll see that, number one, it gives us energy. When I can't tell you the number of people who, when they saw the cross painted and they saw the plantings outside, and my wife has done a lot of that, and Sharon Ellis, and people say, gosh, it just gives us energy to see that. And we can do more of that. It's not like it takes an enormous amount of energy, and it doesn't take an enormous amount of money, and it doesn't take an enormous amount of time. But if we see things, what is it? If you see something, say something. Please, this is the time. and take notes, send emails to the leadership team. And just let us know what you see as us being able to do things, and we'll, again, if we choose Pathway 1, we will prioritize things and decide what is really part of our mission and what is not. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
So, you have the information before you. You have a leadership board and a pastor and staff who are here to support you until your next meeting, and that next meeting is June 18th in the evening at 6:30 in the sanctuary. You'll be getting more information about that. I'll send out a letter once I speak with Philip on Monday. Yeah. Sure.
The reason that is the way it is because the district superintendent is going to facilitate that meeting. So we have to work within his schedule to make that work. That's the reason the turnaround. And that's the reason we want to make clear about what proxy voting looks like and what we need to do, because we understand it's the summer travel schedule, those types of things. So that information will go out, and that's the reason the timing, because I've had a couple people talk to me about what they think about the timing. And so I just wanted to be clear about that.
So, because I'm a little protective of you, and I hope, Philip, you're not watching, and if you are, I'm sorry. Maybe there could be, if you're getting a lot of feedback, I would say speak to him about seeing if you could kick that down a little longer. So, maybe possible, but we just did want to get a date on the calendar so that it just wouldn't leave you flapping in the wind, so to speak. But, so I did hear you wanted information. There are some reports that I had sent out. I don't know if you need more. Yeah, if they want them, I don't know. And financials, yeah. So just trends or whatever you have, whatever you sent me. I think you said you wanted to see that. But that was some really good information incoming information we just got about the cell tower. So, again, thank you for being here. Y'all, this is not easy work. God asks us to do some really challenging and difficult things in ministry. But the beauty in that is we know that we are never alone. You are never alone. God is with us now. God will always be with us in the future. You have one another. So I encourage you to talk to one another in constructive ways. No parking lot conversations about this, right? Like, just have some very loving, thoughtful conversations. And I will be praying for you until I see you again, whether that's on the 18th or whether that's at another date. But Chris will let you know. Okay. So let's go ahead and pray, shall we? God of every beginning and every ending, we confess it. We don't know exactly what lies ahead. Some of us feel hopeful, some have some major anxieties, some feel excited, and some are, quite frankly, we're grieving. Many of us feel all those things at once. But as we leave today, keep working within us. Help us distinguish between preference and calling, between fear and wisdom, between nostalgia and faithfulness. Prepare us for the decision that lies ahead. And whatever path this congregation chooses, remind us that your presence goes before us. You are already there. You have never abandoned this congregation. You have never abandoned your church. And you're not going to do it now. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.